Welcome to the Make Your Money Do More YouTube channel. Today's conversation is around emergency funds. Everyone knows that they should have an emergency fund, but a lot of people don't know where to put it or how much they need. Today, we're going to go over what an emergency fund is for, how much you should have, and where to put it. First things first, what is an emergency fund for? An emergency fund is for unseen events such as losing your job, getting injured and not being able to work, or a large unforeseen expense. It's not for you to pull from when you need a little extra cash. Your emergency fund should be something you can get to fairly quickly, but you don't touch unless it's absolutely necessary. Next question is, how much should you set aside? The answer to this is different for everyone. The generic answer is 6 months of expenses. In the event of an emergency, you should be able to weather the storm for at least 6 months. If an emergency is lasting longer than 6 months, it's likely a medical issue, in which case, disability insurance will likely kick in from your employer if you have it. And while 6 months is recommended, that number could be more or less depending on your situation. If you're single with low fixed expenses, you can likely get by without having 6 months. While if you have a high fixed expense budget, you're likely going to want to have more than 6 months set aside. If you're married and have a single income household, you're likely going to want to have more than 6 months. Well, if you have a household with 2 spouses working, you may not have to have as much because you would still have one income coming through the door if something happened to one of the spouses. When figuring out how much you need, take into consideration your situation. If you can get by and you're comfortable with less than 6 months, then feel free to do it. But make sure that in the event of an emergency, your financial plan isn't taking a step back. The next step is probably the most controversial when it comes to an emergency fund, and this is where to put your money. It is important that your emergency fund is not the same as your regular savings. It should be in a separate account that you can get to if need be, but you shouldn't be pulling funds or able to touch it regularly. Some people say that your emergency fund should only be in a savings account, while others will tell you to have it invested. Is there a right answer to this? Not really. It's going to depend on your situation. If you're someone with a small gap between your income and monthly expenses, you're probably going to want to have your funds in something safe like a savings account, a non-risky money market account, or a high-yield savings account. If you've got a large gap between what you make each month and your monthly expenses, you can probably be a little more aggressive as you have more disposable income to play with depending on the type of emergency. When determining where you should be putting your money, you should look at your financial plan and the tools that you have in place. My wife and I have a combination of tools that can be used as our emergency fund. Our whole life insurance has a cash value of around $25,000, and we can access that money at any time. So we don't keep as much money sitting in savings, and we're letting our money do more for us. Now, if you don't have tools like that, again, you may want to keep your money in savings, but there are other tools that you can put your emergency fund into. Other accounts that can be used as an emergency fund are Roth IRAs, as you can access your basis, which is how much you've invested into your account, without penalty. The downside to this is if the market is down and you need these funds, it can cause you to go backwards. And if you're maxing out your Roth, you're not going to be able to put those funds back in once you're caught back up, because there is a yearly contribution limit. Non-qualified accounts are another option. However, depending on what types of funds you are invested in, it could be risky with the stock market. The upside to a non-qualified account is that there is no penalty for withdrawing funds. However, they're not super tax-friendly over a long period of time, as it is taxed on the growth, and it's taxed when you pull funds out on any unrealized gains. You should be talking to your financial advisor on where to put your emergency fund and how much you should set aside. The answer isn't as simple as 6 months, but when building your financial plan, make sure that you're including your emergency fund. Whether it's savings, a Roth, non-qualified, whole life insurance, or some other tool, make sure that you're prepared for when an emergency occurs. If you've enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe to the channel and check out our other videos. Also, check us out on our other social media platforms for other tips and ideas. If you have any topics that you have questions on, feel welcome to drop a comment, and if it's not already on our list, we may add it for a future video. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.